All right. Welcome to the Why Music podcast, where we talk to independent artists about their journeys, the inspirations behind their music, and ultimately why they make music. I'm your host, Ava Lynch, and this week we have Lynx. This next artist has been in the industry for 4 years, and it certainly shows, having opened up for acts like Young the Giant and New Vices, and being featured on Spotify playlists like today's singer-songwriters. She's one who truly embodies what indie rock is. Welcome, Lynx.
Thank you. Wow. What an intro.
I do my best.
Yeah, it's great.
So why don't you kind of start off with just kind of where your music journey began? Like, where was it that kind of got things moving? And when did you kind of just start to really commit to that as something you were putting time and effort into?
Wow, that's like a loaded question. Mostly because I started playing music. My mom had me in piano lessons when I was like 4 years old. And then in elementary school, for whatever reason that year, the elementary school decided that every first grader was going to get a violin.
Oh,
So I started playing the violin at age 5. And I loved it. It like immediately became my personality and everything. It like embodied me. And then I always loved music. It was always a part of my like daily routine, really. And then when I was in 6th grade, we needed an upright bassist in the orchestra. And I think that would probably be like my musical awakening was when I started playing the bass. Because then I discovered the bass guitar and then the guitar, and then it just kind of unfolded. And now I play pretty much anything with strings. So it'd probably be the bass, but like I feel like I always knew that I wanted to be a musician from diapers, probably. I don't know. I feel like it feels like it was always in my like destiny to do it.
why is that?
There's nothing else that gets me as excited or like, I don't know. Like when I make music, it feels like, I don't know, like fireworks every time. It's weird, but I don't know. I've never really heard anybody say it in that way, but like, I don't know. It's like the only thing that's been constant in my life in that way.
Makes sense. So when was it that kind of it went from being a musician and going from like violin to bass to all these other things, that it went from recreating music essentially to like writing your own? And kind of what was like a turning point where you decided, oh, I'm going to start writing music, and then that became, oh, I'm just going to be this artist now?
Yeah. I would say probably in high school, I was writing a lot. That's when I started learning production, like recording things in my bedroom. But I think like once I once I was like a sophomore in college, I was just like, yeah, I don't want to do anything other than be an artist. Like I was in school for music business and production and recording and all of that, but I just quickly was like, no, I just want to write songs and tour and record, and I want to be an artist. And so I just started writing all the time. We had all these like practice rooms and stuff, and I would have to practice like my upright bass jury pieces, and instead I would be like writing poetry and like with my guitar, just like praying that my bass teacher wouldn't walk by and like check in on me. But yeah, it was just like this. I would say probably like sophomore and junior year of college, I was like, no, I'm just gonna do it. Like, I'm not gonna keep holding off anymore. But I think I've known since I was probably like freshman year of high school, I knew I wanted to be an artist. But I just kind of followed what like the trajectory of, okay, like I do well academically and then I go to college and do all that. And then I just was like, no, I'm not. I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to be an artist. So
So at what point did you actually start like writing music?
I think I wrote my first song when I was like 13. Yeah.
That's a young age.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't very good. I would like write songs for my cousins, or like I would write songs for my brother, or like my grandma, just for fun, or just like to express like relationships. And then once I started dating, and I got a little older, then I started like really using it as a tool for like therapy in a way. Like, let me just write about my feelings because I don't know how else to like get through it.
Yep.
Like teenage heartbreak is crazy. And yeah, I still think to this day I write from a very place of using it as like songwriting as a way to like heal through like pain or joy or like seeking something bigger. But yeah, it's just always been a part of my, I don't know, it's like always been a part of like even my daily routine of just picking up a guitar and writing something since I was like 13 years old.
It's the best kind of habit to have, though.
Yeah, it really is.
To do that daily, especially in a situation like this where that was kind of always your plan.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What would you say inspires your writing? Like what kind of thing, like, is there something that inspires your writing more than some other things? Like what is like, where do you kind of pull most of your inspiration from?
I think it definitely depends on what I'm doing at the time or where I'm at. Like recently I've been writing a lot of nostalgic songs about like old friends or older relationships or like wishing you could go back to a certain moment. But also writing from like circumstances or specific situations that I either want to be in or like have been in, I guess. I do write a lot of like past tense songs. I think just from writing from experience, that's just how it kind of happens. But I do write a lot of like relationship songs. And I remember first starting out, I was like, I'm not going to write songs about love. And
I was the same way.
Yeah, and then I quickly learned like, no, those are like the ones that like I have to write. But yeah, I think it's mostly, at least right now, a lot of just nostalgic songs. I like that a lot.
For any particular reason, or just that's just how it's been?
I feel like just right now, especially being away from home, for so long now, I think I've been away for now 4 years. I think it's starting to like weigh on me, like finding new friends and remembering my old friends and staying in touch with people, and just kind of realizing how different like life paths can take you, even if you still talk every day. Like you can be completely different than how you were before. So,
right.
Yeah, just a lot of nostalgic over here.
A lot of reminiscing going on.
Yeah.
How would you describe your music to someone that's never heard it?
I would say if Lorde made happier music that sounded like the 1975.
That's an interesting combination.
Yeah.
Okay. I could see the Lorde vibes.
Yeah. I think that's how I would describe it.
That's
There's
interesting.
a little Chelsea Cutler in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
In what way?
Just like she uses a lot of these like sounds, like like I don't know. Those I like those sounds. They're good sounds.
They're good sounds.
Yeah. She's awesome. They're all awesome. But yeah, That's how I would describe it, I think.
Is there kind of going, I guess my next question kind of goes off of that. If there was someone, if you could open for anybody, do you know, like, who would you want to open for? Would it be one of those three?
I mean, the 1975 would be insane. But I feel like, I mean, that would be really cool. Or Lord. I feel like Lord would be a really, really top one for me. Yeah, either of those two.
That would be,
Yeah.
I mean, they both, I've not seen any clips or anything of the 1975 live, but I know like Lord puts on her own kind of unique performance with the way that she kind of does her own deal. So that would be.
I saw her. I have yet to see the 1975 live. That's definitely on like a bucket list somewhere among my lists. I did get the chance to see Lord, and she had this crazy like suspended box that was in the air, and it like moved. And it was suspended, and they had like lights around it, and there were dancers in it, and I think at one point she was inside of it, and they like tossed and turned inside, and it felt like somebody was gonna like fall out of this glass box.
Oh my God.
But like my brain, I was like, that's so cool. I want to do that so bad.
I want to be suspended above a stage in a box.
Yeah.
That's funny. I could totally see her putting on something like that.
Yeah.
Is there, within your current releases, is there a particular song that you think like best embodies you as an artist? Like in a way that it was like you're given the opportunity to play one song of your own for somebody to kind of like sell them on like you as an artist. What song would that be?
I think it's kind of an underrated one.
Okay.
But I really think that my song, If You Just, kind of embodies a lot of it. There's a little bit of angst in there. It's kind of spicy. But I don't think that song has as much guitar as my recent music does. I would say though my upcoming songs that are coming out soon. I don't want to say any names, but they definitely are like the songs that I've been trying to make my whole life, I think.
Ooh.
They sound like what I've been like seeking for a very long time. So I'm very excited about that. But the ones that have been released, I would say either If You Just or Evergreen.
Okay.
I think Evergreen lyrically feels like me on the inside. It's kind of a wholesome song, but yeah, it just lyrically like discusses life in I think a very magical, wondrous way. But the production is a little more acoustic than the other songs. So yeah, that's my long-winded answer.
I wouldn't call that quite long-winded.
Yeah.
Do you then kind of going a step further with that, is there a favorite like lyric that you've written that you would be like, this is the favorite line. This is my best line. Like, this is where I peak.
I named my last EP off of that. Every time I find the meaning of life, it changes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yep. That's my favorite lyric I think I've ever written. I've been trying to top it since, but
currently that is where the peak is.
That is the peak. Yeah.
I mean, as a lyric, that's great. But as a concept of like life, just every time you think you got it, you don't, it's a frustrating thought.
Yeah. I feel like every time I feel like I figured it out, like a week later, I'm like, I figured it out again. Like, this is it.
So did we ever really figure it out?
Yeah. No.
Probably not.
I don't think we ever do.
No, I think that's the meaning of life, is to keep searching for the answer that you will never find.
Yeah. Well, the song Evergreen uses that lyric, and I based it off of this. It's true. The evergreen trees in a forest, they never lose their greens. So they stay the same year round. And as time moves on, they also live like incredibly long. And so I wrote the song as like kind of an ode to the idea of in life, like we're constantly growing to become who we have been all along. And like some people will say like, oh, I'm finding that the things that I do now are just what I did as a child. Like they find in their adult life, they just like doing the same things they did when they were a kid. I don't know. But that's like, it's kind of reminiscent to that of like just growing to be who you've been all along and that you've been the same this whole time. And like, even if you change, you're still yourself. Like yeah.
As a concept, that's a lot to take in for a moment.
It's a lot.
I didn't know that about the trees. That makes sense why the like phrase evergreen has the like meaning behind it that it does. I didn't know that it came from the trees. I thought it was just another thing.
Yeah, evergreen. Yep.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Interesting. The more you know. Is there something that you kind of, when it comes to like making the music rather than like the writing process, like past the writing process, you're turning it into what it's going to become. Is there a certain sound that you find yourself like not chasing, but like aiming for? Like, is there something that's like, oh, like do you kind of like aim for just see whatever happens? Or is there like, oh, I want it to be like, I want this kind of sound to be a part of my music, like as an artist. So that's something that I'm going to incorporate.
Yeah, there's definitely, I definitely hear like most of the composition in my head, but when it comes to producing it, it can get difficult to match everything exactly how it is, like inside my ear. But I think like recently I've really been searching for these like ultra gritty, reverberated like lead lines that almost sound like a guitar. But they're like, you know, a Moog synth or something like that. And like, yeah, just like really gritty, dark synths that kind of flow between phrases. I've been using a lot of those recently. And also a lot of like ARP basses, like really punchy bass sounds. I feel like I'm constantly looking for new bass sounds every time. Yeah.
It's probably in part because you are a bassist.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay. So what is something like, what is your driving force, I guess, essentially in like, oh, I got to make the songs. I got to do these different things. Like, what is the driving force behind you being an artist beyond like just the passion itself?
Okay. So music is like, at least to me, is a very connecting force and a way to communicate like a story or a message to an audience. And I think for myself, a lot of the music I write is either, you know, I identify as being bi. And so growing up, I didn't have a lot of that representation. Well, I had none of that representation growing up. So that's something that I definitely want to contribute, at least in a catalog sense, to the world and history, and even in like a very small way. Not saying I'm going to be in a book or anything, but knowing that it exists in some way, at least to anybody who hears it, I feel like even if I can just reach one person who needs to hear something in that way, then it's made an impact. I think that's why, I think that's mostly why I make music, is to hopefully impact others or help other people through what they're going through. Yeah.
You want to write the music that you didn't have when you were growing up?
Basically, yeah. Yeah, I want to write the music I didn't have.
It's a full circle.
Yeah.
It's the circle of life.
I did really love the Spice Girls and like Shania Twain and stuff. And, like, Paramore was great. Like I don't know if I can top any of that stuff. I'm pretty sure I won't be able to. That was great music, but you know, being able to say what I can say now, I think is if I could have heard what I'm making now when I was 8 years old, I think it would have like I would have opened up more as a kid, I think.
The Spice Girls and Shania Twain.
Yeah.
It's very different from your music.
Oh yeah, very different, very different. But that's what I grew up with. Yeah.
Interesting how that really in a way didn't feed into what you're doing now.
No, not at all, but it was definitely my first like when I think of the music I listened to when I was a kid, it was Shania Twain, the Spice Girls, and AC/DC. Like, yeah.
I guess we're meeting somewhere in the middle then on that. I could see how those two opposite worlds could collide and become what you're doing now.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah.
In an intricate path of events.
Yeah.
Interesting. So kind of building off of that, obviously what I've come to know in the last like couple of years, and I'm sure what you've experienced being out in LA, there is a ton of people doing just what you're doing and doing the music thing, putting it out, wanting to tour, doing shows, et cetera, et cetera. What is it that you think kind of sets you apart from what seems to be a very saturated world of independent creatives?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think it's amazing how many people are doing music. I remember like when I was younger, it seemed like really not a lot of people were, like it didn't seem like a very common thing. And then when I started getting into it, it seemed like all these other people started picking it up, or like a lot of people from especially like our generation just started doing it, and it's become a lot more accessible to make music from home, which is amazing. But I think what at least sets me apart in a way that maybe it's not heard necessarily in my music as much, but I come from a classical background, so I write from a like orchestra perspective. So a lot of the parts are written as like this would be the bass part or the cello part or the viola part or the violin part. And then basing everything around that. So a lot of the textures and things in my production are like from that background. And well, the background is from my background. But I think that's what sets me apart, at least musically. And I think lyrically and melodically, I think, I don't know. I think there's definitely room for as many artists as there are. I think it just depends on how many ears are listening to each artist and who can break through. But I think the more that TikTok becomes prevalent in the industry, I mean, it's pretty much the top right now, but I think that the more we see the industry grow digitally that way, the more it's going to be, I mean, it could end up being easier to grow, or it could become extremely more difficult, but either way, I just know I'm going to keep going because I don't know what else to do with my time. I really don't. Yeah. I also just really like writing, so whether it comes from me releasing my own music or working on other people's music or production, like I'm willing to do anything, really.
And you do it all yourself, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
That's crazy. I do it too, but
I say like that's different, but like the more I'm in it, the more I'm seeing how many other artists do the same thing, and I'm like, that's awesome. Okay, cool. Like we're all doing the same thing, which is great because it makes me feel less alone. Too. I think for a long time I felt like, oh, I'm a girl from a small town who plays bass, and I'm learning to record. And at least where I'm from, like nobody does that.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you go on the internet and you see there's like hundreds of us, and I'm like thousands, and I'm like, yes, like, okay, cool. Like, I don't feel like I'm the only one, which is great.
That's interesting because I kind of had the opposite reaction of it. Is like I thought I was like so cool in doing this, and I was like writing my own music and putting it out and everything, and then all of a sudden I was like, everything I saw like on TikTok was like, here's somebody else doing it somewhere else, and all these other things, and I was like, I'm really not that fucking special, I guess.
No, I mean, yeah, I definitely had that reaction. I think afterwards, where I was like, man, okay, so that means I have to like make more content and post more, and it has to be like amazing, which is a lot of pressure. I think it applies a lot more pressure in a way that I think we're not used to feeling pressure. I'm definitely not used, like, I don't think I'm supposed to see my face as often as I see my face. I don't think we're supposed to look at ourselves this much. But I don't know. It is what it is at this point.
It's true.
That's how it works right now. So
yeah, that's where we're at. TikTok is the epitome of make it or break it kind of for new artists anymore. I mean, really more than make it. I don't think like, oh, failing on TikTok is going to fail your career, but for right now, it might be a minor setback, you know?
Yeah. I also just saw recently, I think they're turning it into a streaming platform.
They are doing something of that capacity. I'm not sure what it's going to look like. I have zero expectation. I'm sure it'll be something. Where it'll go, who knows? But I know it's kind of, I think, like to start a war with Spotify a little bit.
Yeah.
So
we'll see.
They're poking the bear.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They definitely.
they're starting a riot. So what kind of, I think you kind of already answered this a little bit, but we'll come back to it anyway. What kind of impact is it that you want your music to have?
I think mostly I just want like teenagers and young adults to know that it's going to be okay. I mean, I'm at this point where I'm like, I still don't necessarily know, but I have a lot of hope that it's just going to be okay, mostly because it has to be. But like, I think that that's kind of my overarching message with everything, is that it's going to be okay and you're going to get through it and it's not the end of the world. Especially when you're young, everything does feel like it's so important. Like, I don't know, earlier I was at Trader Joe's and I was like, which type of like Joe-O's do I get? It's like, it felt like if I made the wrong decision, I'm like,
end of the world.
Yeah, I'm like throwing my money away. Oh my God, it's like $2. And I'm like, no, it's really not that important. I can get the honey ones and it's going to be okay. Like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think just that it's not the end of the world.
Give that bigger perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you, I mean, like I said in my little introduction, you've been doing this for 4 years. Obviously, now we've established that you've been writing for a lot longer. Do you have like a favorite experience or anything that you've had kind of being an artist that's kind of really been like a moment of, this is why I'm doing this, or this kind of made it all worth it?
Yeah, I mean, recently since I'm in LA now, it's happened more frequently, but I've started getting these random one-off opportunities to go into studios and write songs for like movies or TV shows. And normally they give you like a little brief and they'll say, write a song about like a forest and you don't know what's happening next. And that's it. And you sit there with like basically a stranger and it's like, okay, you have 3 hours, go. And it feels like almost like a homework assignment, like you're in a group project, but you're in like an amazing recording studio and you have like instruments at your disposal. And it's really fun. And I think that every time I get to do that, it feels like, wow, okay, like I'm in this now, and this is like what I get to do. And yeah, I think like I haven't necessarily had the crazy show experience yet, but once that happens, I think that will definitely take over this sync thing right now. But yeah, I would say for right now, at least in terms of writing, that's been like a huge like treasure that I've recently found in myself.
Right. I mean, if people are paying you directly to write music for them, you have to think at some point, I might actually be pretty good at this, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh,
That's
wow.
a
Okay, cool.
total
Yeah.
vote of confidence right there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely really cool though. Like I'm excited when I get to a point where I can play like big festivals and stuff like that. But it's when I was when I was first starting out, I would say like, oh, like when I'm in a city I've never been in and I point the mic in the crowd and somebody says like a word that I wrote in my bedroom, like I've far surpassed that now. Like I never really could think of anything beyond how cool that would be.
Mm-hmm.
Now I just am constantly now finding out these little things that are just really great about being an artist. And like when somebody randomly messages me from, like I got a message from somebody in Cambodia the other day saying like, oh, I found your song, it meant the world to me, like it got me through this. Like that's insane. Like that's not supposed to happen. You know what I mean? Like that's so cool. And yeah, I think that's like probably the most special part about it.
I mean, that kind of comes full circle back to how you said that music is a huge form of connection. And if you're connecting with these people that you've never met and probably will never meet just through something that you put together through your own work and creativity, like it's mind boggling to think that that would come across somebody else's.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely beyond me, but yeah, I'm just really grateful. And it definitely feels like I'm still at this like very beginning stage, even though I have been, you know, making music for quite a long time. But I think mostly that's just because I mostly just do it for myself because
Mm-hmm.
it is that like therapeutic thing for me, and I just release what I write and what I think is something that's releasable. There's definitely thousands of things that I've written that will not see the light of day, but what is out there is definitely like curated to kind of share like a moment that I think people either go through or might go through in the future that I think should be like a story that could be shared. Yeah.
At the end of the day, a song really is just a 3-minute condensed story.
Yep. Yeah.
As much as we can try to make it, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess all that really leaves me with is the overarching question that is the podcast itself. Why music of all things?
For me, why music? I mean, it's all I've ever really known and been able to understand through like every aspect. Like I've always been fascinated by like even like sound design and like the physics of sound and how it travels through spaces. Or like how my voice is going into the mic, into the cable, and going into this box, into my computer, and now I can talk to you, and you're in Chicago. Like that's weird.
It's
Like,
crazy.
yeah.
Technology, man.
And yeah, I don't know. And if you go to like a show and they crank the bass, it feels crazy. Like it feels like your body's shaking and your heart is warm. And you can listen to a word with a melody and it can like make the hair stand up on the back of your neck. And like I'll look at art, like I have this art and I love looking at it every day, but it doesn't make me feel, it doesn't make the hair stand up in the back of my neck. It doesn't like, there's no speaker that blows my hair because it's so loud, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, it just, clearly it gets me very excited. In a way, yeah, I don't know. It's great. It's great. And I love writing it. I'm not a poet. Definitely not. That's a different art form, but I love poetry. And I think lyrics can be quite poetic. That is something I want to mess around with in the future, though, is like maybe writing a poem and turning it into lyrics. But it's definitely difficult. I don't know how they do it. It's like so descriptive, but not at all. I don't know. I love it. I love
It's
poetry.
everything but nothing at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And dancing, I'm not good at dancing. So
Just
Yeah.
checking off the art forms here.
well, I'm definitely left brain, so I had to pick some creative thing. Yeah. So music. That's why music. Yeah.
Because the other art forms just don't do it for you the way the music does.
Yeah, and it makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck.
That is the ultimate goal.
Yep. The pinnacle.
That is the peaking moment.
Yeah, that is the Everest of it all.
The Everest, exactly. All right. Well, I think that concludes this episode of the Why Music podcast. We will be back again next week with a new artist and a whole new conversation. Check back next Tuesday.